Okay.
Good morning to those of you who are in North and South America. Good afternoon to friends in Africa and Europe. And good evening to you who are in Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. 142 from 38 countries signed up for this webinar. And we're just glad that you on this call could join us live today. Welcome everyone to today's MEI webinar, How to Write Biographies of Local Heroes of Faith. Welcome to those of you who are joining an MEI webinar for the first time. If this is you, please use the chat and say, "It's my first time." This is Ramon Rocha of Media Associates International. I'll formally introduce our presenter later, but warm greetings to you, Jojie, who is now in Japan, since you are in Japan. Konnichiwa. And please briefly greet and welcome our audience. Just say hello to them. Just say
Okay.
hello.
Hi. Good. Yeah. Good day. Good day to everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe that's safer. It covers the whole day. Yeah. Days. Thank
MEI,
you for joining.
yeah.
Yeah.
MEI's mission is to help equip and encourage global Christian writers and publishers to create life-transforming materials in their heart language and in their local context, that these publications will help strengthen the church and impact society. We encourage you on this call to please interact with us, and you can also interact with each other by using the chat for your comments and the Q&A for your questions. This 1-hour webinar is being recorded, and we will send you the link to the recorded version within today. God continues to use biographies to help strengthen the faith of Jesus' followers and inspire them to consider serving him perhaps full-time and go into cross-cultural missions. We are blessed to have Jojie Wong as our speaker today and share with us her writing journey. She will share pointers and tips in writing biographies for adults as well as for children. Jojie works as a missions mobilizer for OMF International and is the co-author of the biography Headhunters of Sierra Madre. She also wrote 16 mini-biographical stories for World Vision's 65th anniversary book entitled The Day My Life Changed, Stories of Hope, Joy, and Justice for World Vision. Jojie wrote 8 children's books, including 3 standalone stories of cross-cultural friendships between young boys from Christian families, befriending boys coming from families of different backgrounds. The titles of these books are Peter and Ahmed, Nico and Alug, and David and his new classmate. So friends, please welcome Jojie Wong.
Good day to everyone. It's my first time also actually to be joining this, and it's a privilege to be able to do a webinar with you with a subject that is actually more and more convicted by this in terms of sharing about life stories of local heroes. Let me just share my PowerPoint. Okay. So I've been asked to talk about how to write biographies on local heroes. Yeah. So as you may have already, as Ramon has already shared, no, I've written to the Headhunters of Sierra Madre and 2 other biographies for children. That one is for adults. The one for children is Hudson Taylor and Eric Liddell. I'll be sharing principles and tips on writing, but later part of the session, hopefully you'll be able to answer questions, right, within the 40 minutes. I do encourage you to interact in the chat box as well. Yeah. As we talk about biographies, I want to share with you one important confirmation for me to serve as a full-time missionary was actually a biography as well. It was of J.O. Fraser in his book called Mountain Rain. Okay, these are my books. And this is the book that really somehow confirmed with me my call to go into full-time missions. And it was because of the way that the book was written, where it was very transparent, where it revealed many of J.O. Fraser's struggles as a missionary, his failures, and he even wanted to quit the ministry. All this dispelled in my mind the myth of a super missionary and made me be able to relate to someone and say, if he could do that and he can be used by God, then I can. I don't have to be intimidated and have to be super holy. So that's how this book impacted me. So maybe I can ask, in your particular case, even as I talked about this, you may already have some idea like what biographies impacted your life. Can you type in the chat any biography that may have impacted your life? I'm not able to see the chat, but I think, oh, here you go. Okay, Neil Young. Okay, others? Do you have any others who want to type in the chat other biographies that impacted? Yes, William Carey, yes. Hudson Taylor, Spiritual Secret. Jan Sung, Isabel Kuhn's books. Yes. Okay. Oh, Philip Yancey, yes. Okay. Eric Liddell. Okay. Others, Amy Carmichael, yes, quite prominent people. Hannah More. Any others? Yes, Adoniram Judson. Yes. Marie Curie. Yes. C.T. Studd. Yeah. Elizabeth Elliot. Yes. I'm sure there's many, many more, but that really proves the point where biographies are really impactful in our lives. Yeah. So why is it important? In my role as a missions mobilizer, I frequently ask those considering to become missionaries what influenced them to want to become missionaries. And one answer that keeps coming up, almost like a trend, is the influence of missionary biographies, right? So when people read biographies, and I'm sure quite a few of my OMM colleagues are in this call, I'm sure they also have biographies that have impacted them in their journey towards missions. They do play a very important role in some people's journey towards fulfilling their call as missionaries, or even in full-time Christian service. Can you think of other reasons um, for that Christian biographies are important to Christians? Any other reasons? What other reasons are there? Any reasons for the importance of biographies to Christians? Yes, for future missions, for those who are considering. Yes, some of these books are really good, yeah. For encouragement and inspiration, yes. Yes, the needs of countries and people groups. It inspires us. Okay, remind us of God, what God has done. Yes, the focus on God and how God uses ordinary people and show challenges of how they overcome. Yes, glorifying God. Yep. Yes, historical perspective during that time. Yeah. Yes, historical data, very important, but in a very interesting way. Yeah. We can learn from successes and failures, testimony of God's faithfulness. Yep. Getting to know how God worked among his people. Yes, thank you. Yeah, these are very excellent reasons. And actually, some of you already have pointed out some of the reasons I have for asking the next question. Why is our focus local heroes? Yeah. The key word in this title, and probably if I'm not mistaken, quite a few of you commented when you registered to join. It's the word local is the one that probably prompted you to register. Okay, why write about local heroes? Why not just generally write about any hero, like say, and you've mentioned a few already, William Carey, Adoniram Judson, and in my case, I wrote about Hudson Taylor. Why is there an emphasis for local? Again, can you also type in the chat? I'd love to hear what you think. Why is there an emphasis on local? Yes, because there's often very little written about them. Yeah. Yes, to inspire the local people. Yes, it's more relatable. Yeah. Some challenges and our encouragement. Good stories are right in front of us. Yeah. And they need to be told. Yeah. Correct. There's a lot of context involved that is familiar to us. Okay. And yes, oh, somebody's writing about missionary as his local thesis. Okay, in his thesis. That's really good. And hopefully we'll see more of that happening. Yeah. So um a lot of your reasons are really what I would like to talk about as well. Those who have served God and greatly used by him in our local context are very relatable. As Ramon mentioned, I wrote 16 life stories of former child sponsors, those who are sponsored by World Vision, who have grown up and how it impacted their life in that book, The Day My Life Changed. Um, and it really struck me how different and impactful it was when I listened to them when my subjects talked about their life when they were in the slums, or what they went through and all their struggles, and I could imagine how it looked like in my local context, and it's very inspiring. Because sometimes when we see how difficult our countries are, we think, oh, there's no more hope, and then you hear stories of hope and it inspires you, yeah, that it's within your local context. So why local? Some of you have mentioned it already. Why do we write about local heroes? Firstly, and some of you have mentioned this, it provides local models of faith to the younger generation in our country and context. Yeah. It helps the younger generation see, oh, these are models that you can identify with in our own culture. It also helps, some of you have also mentioned, preserves local Christian history. Yeah. I don't know, some of you might have heard of it, and you can raise your hand if you have. How many have read the book From Jerusalem to Irian Jaya by Ruth Tucker? Have some of you heard about that book? It's a book where Ruth Tucker very brilliantly did a biography, missions history through biographies, and ordered them chronologically. And it was all of those who pioneered all the way to Hudson Taylor, the student missions movement, all of those. And in my mind, actually, it didn't stop at Irian Jaya. It continued on, and with missions movement where Asians have become missionaries, South Africans have become missionaries, South Americans, all these different groups of people have become missionaries, but there's hardly any stories. So it's good to have that in our Christian missions history, incorporate that in our Christian missions history as well. Yeah. Okay, and local heroes are stories that are relatable to our local Christian readers, and it inspires them to apply their lives as well. What they hear and what they see in the lives of these local heroes. It gives insight on how to serve God in ways that are unique to our local culture and local cultural identities. Because there is a uniqueness that's different when we serve in our local cultures, Christian expressions of faith that are different and distinct to our culture, that might be something that will help people, in how to serve well, help missionaries as well, how to serve well in a culture that's different to them. Yeah. Okay. informs the global missions community on local perspectives of Christian workers and leaders. A lot of missionaries, when they go to another culture, they learn about the culture of the people that they're reaching out to, right? But it would be valuable also for them to learn about the culture of the people that are serving with them. So it's not cross-culture, but intercultural. How are you serving in partnership with local believers or local workers? So this gives that local perspective as well. Say, for example, a Filipino missionary serving in Thailand will bring in a distinctly different way of serving than, say, an American missionary in Thailand. Not better or worse or whatever, just different. And it will be a good learning experience for everyone. Yeah. The other one is additional contribution to the diversity of ways that we can serve the global work of God and the global Christian community. So this is big picture. You might say, oh, my book is just a small book, but it still is a good contribution to the global community. And hopefully we will all be able to pick it up. And MAI is such a great place, a resource and a clearinghouse for all this different great resource for everyone. Yeah. And lastly, and I think it's a very important point, is that we want to use biographies of local heroes to mobilize more global South or two-thirds world churches into missions movement. I don't have the figures with me right now, but one of the books one of the EMQ, Evangelical Missions Quarterly magazine, they had an issue that focused on mobilization. And it showed how, as the churches grow in the global South, there is no parallel growth in missions movement. So there's a lot that still needs to be done in terms of mobilizing churches towards the unreached. And there's still many unreached people and places that we need to really work on and really focused on. Yeah. So that's another huge contribution we will have if we focus on writing about our local heroes or local workers. Yeah. Imagine being able to show great models on what it means to be, for example, a Thai missionary or a Filipino preacher or a Mexican pastor. All this would contribute to the global community, Christian community, and in such excellent, colorful, and exciting and encouraging ways. Yeah. And I'm sure, as I mentioned this now, you might already have a few people in mind whose lives of faithfulness have inspired you. Imagine their stories having a wider impact on Christians, young and old, in your country and beyond, yeah, or in similar countries. I'll not be asking you to write the names down in the chat, but if you have your notebook with you or you're writing notes as we share in this webinar, please do write those names down and consider. And some of you may already have focus, like somebody in the chat saying, writing a thesis about the person. You might already have that as well. But those who still are trying to think about certain people, you might already be reminded right now of thinking about somebody who you might consider writing. Yeah. Okay. So just think about that. Who are you thinking of? Maybe more than one person. Just write those names down in your notebook. Okay. So let's go to our main point. Key points to remember. As I mentioned, I have wrote a few biographies, one for adults, a few for children, and 16 on mini biographies for World Vision. But all of them started with key points you need to have in mind. And as I share, you may have some questions. Please feel free again to write those questions down in the chat. Some may already be answered as I share each of the points, but some hopefully will have time. We will be able to answer later. Okay. So firstly, choose your subject wisely. There have been cases where it would be strategic to write about somebody who's still very young, who have done amazing things, maybe a young star, a bright star. But I feel like it may be safer to write, to choose a subject as a person who's more established, who have shown consistency in their life, and who is a Christian and a worker of solid standing. Yeah. So think about the subject very carefully. And somebody young, I think might be a great subject, but it may be good to think about somebody who has more established standing in society or in our Christian community. Yeah. Second, very important point, get permissions. Is the subject willing? If the person is still alive, is the person willing to share? And because willingness would also mean being able to cooperate with you with resources, and being able to share their photos and all these different things with you. It may feel some of them may feel, oh, it's too presumptuous, who would want to know about my life? But if you feel very strongly, and quite a few feel very strongly, you need to cast a vision of why it would be good to feature their lives. But others might be very firm about keeping their lives private, so we need to ask permissions. If the person has already passed, you still will need to ask permission, say from their spouse, their children, or if they have a foundation, they might have to ask permission from them, since they will also need to release material, photos or whatever, that to help with your research. So you need to think that through as well. Okay, have a timeline for yourself. Set a timeline for the whole project, maybe by phases. So from permissions, asking permissions, to research, how long do you need to take for research? And then the writing portion, the editing portion, and publication. This gives you a bit of structure and direction, so you don't go around in circles. But also, but do remember not to hold this too tightly, and have some room to flex for whatever unexpected things that might come up. Say halfway through writing, some development in this person's life might be very important to incorporate. So you need to do a little bit of backtrack to do some research as well. Okay. And also very important in keeping timeline, if you're somebody like me who's a more flex person, who needs that deadlines to keep me going, you might need somebody to help you keep accountable. Set the deadline and ask somebody to help you be accountable. If you're already working with a publisher, maybe the editor or your publisher can help you be accountable to your deadlines. I usually try to set a deadline about 2 weeks before the actual deadline. That keeps me really that keeps me on time in my writing. Yeah. Okay. Fourth, research is very crucial. Gathering data through letters, relevant documents, interviews with the person, with the subject, with family, colleagues. Check the libraries, do Google search about the areas. If geography is a big thing, do research on geography. I personally find it good practice to have more data than I may later need. Yeah. But deadline is also important. You don't want to go into rabbit holes, yeah, and end up being lost in all these different data, and then you lose the big picture, yeah. So you do need to set deadlines. And you need to also make a decision to say, right, I have more than enough data, I need to start writing. In both Eric Liddell and Hudson Taylor, I took about 2 months, since I was also doing other work, and it was not as difficult because there's so much already written about the both of them. If your subject is not as well known, with very little data, you might need to think through how much time to get it, and and be creative and resourceful in how you want to gather data. Yeah. Now, apart from gathering data, very important is verifying your data. verifying your data is very important. If if you feel that there are conflicting accounts or a single account in a person's life that seems interesting but only comes from one source and there's no other confirmation, especially if the person has already passed, I would be careful about using it. Focus on accounts and incidents that have a few other ways of verifying it. One example for me is when I wrote about Eric Liddell, I was doing my research. There was one story, one account, and it was quite an interesting account of Eric Liddell turning down Winston Churchill's offer for his release from the camp, from the prison camp, and he let this go, and said to Winston Churchill, "Take this other prisoner, a pregnant woman, instead of me." I checked the source, and it always went back to one single source. So I wasn't very sure, but there was enough other incidents that show Eric's selflessness. So I didn't use this account because I wasn't very sure about it. Yeah, so make sure you have a lot of confirmations that data is verifiable as well. Okay. 6, be curious and open-minded. You may already have general impressions of the person you're writing about, but try to hold that lightly. God may surprise you once you do your research and interviews. And always be asking why. Asking why provides treasure troves of possible leads and triggers memories or stories long forgotten. You might ask a person, how did you feel when this happened? Or, so what happened to that incident? How did it, provide closure? And all these things, be curious, right? When I was writing to the Headhunters, I asked Florentino Santos, the subject, a why question. And this led him to remember he actually composed a song. It's not published, but he composed a song. So I put the whole song, it was a lovely hymn that he composed, into the book. Yeah. This was also helpful when I wrote the mini biographies for World Vision and had to interview the subjects about their lives. So asking questions like, how did you feel when that happened? And so on. This led and enriched the story so much, and also provided me with more insight about the personalities and their perspectives. All that was very helpful as well, and gave you rich material, right? 7, main theme or idea. What's the main point? As you go through data you have gathered, observe patterns or regular impressions to find a theme. Having a main idea helps writing with clarity and will guide you, and will also help you sift through the data and not be overwhelmed by them. It gives you direction and discipline. Okay, this is the data I'm going to need for that theme. Okay, that gives you clarity as well, and gives you direction and discipline. Okay, think through your main idea. In the case of Hudson Taylor, it was about that impossibility, that faith that he had of God. Yeah, that really came through, and how God came through for him in each crisis that he went through. And in Florentino Santos, it's the experience of God's faithfulness in his pioneering work as a Filipino missionary. So think through those things. 8, develop a chronological outline. This helps organize your thoughts about this person's life. Wait, did this happen before this? Or did this happen before? All these things, sometimes we can't even remember our own chronology of which happened sometimes, if there's a lot of messy things that happen. So it's good to provide a chronology so that it helps clarify things in your mind as the person's life unfolds. So do a mini chronological outline that will help you, that you could go back and refer to. Keep your readers in mind. Who are you writing to? Is it everyday Christians? Is it children? This would help with word choices. Yeah. Even if I am deep into missions, I am very careful when I write that I don't use big words like, I don't know, some practitioners here would know, like contextualization, or even the word global south. All these words, not for your ordinary everyday Christians that you are wanting to reach and wanting to mobilize, right? So you need to know who are you writing to, and write in a way that they will understand and they will grasp. Yeah. So consider your readers, and if it's children, how are you going to catch their interest in the way you write? No, and your main message will be conveyed well if you do that. Yeah, consider your readers, keep them in mind. Be creative in your storytelling. It will catch their interest, but also be clear. From chronology, you could then think of chapters, sub-themes. You can use flashbacks, dialogues, words that readers can picture in their minds. Also try to anticipate, like, so do you know what happened to this? Did you think this would happen? But actually, this happened. Try to get into their minds and try to anticipate what their questions will be, and follow that through. And if you're so having an idea on what sparks the interest of your leaders, what their concerns could be, and how you touch their values will help sustain their interest to the book. But be very careful about creativity, yeah, that it won't confuse your leaders, especially the use of flashbacks. Be careful that you don't confuse them. This may distract from the story. Use it only to sustain interest, but not to distract them. If you get them to be amazed by your creativity rather than the story, that's a distraction. Be clear. So I use the readability index. There's fog index, flesh Kincaid. Get them through to make sure that you're writing in simple, common words that readers can understand, and they will just read the first time. They don't need to reread it. Yeah. If they need to reread it, they might put it down. Yeah. So I know this is very hard. As writers, we love words. We love to use the exact right word. You may be tempted to show that you have a wide vocabulary. Please don't. Love your readers more than you love words. Yeah. All these nice words, but love your readers more, because what we want is clarity, so that people can see and read and be clear what you are trying to communicate. Okay, the 11th it's a big thing, and I might ask Ramon to give more input on this, but if you can, plan and consult on how your work is going to be published and distributed early on in the process. What's your strategy in terms of distribution? Do you already have a publishing house that's willing to work with you? That would be great. If not, it may be good to explore this early, and not finish the whole manuscript and that don't know what to do with it. I have friends who have ended up with this situation, a dilemma. Generally, not just with biographies, but other books as well. I'm fortunate that I work with OMF Literature and is willing to publish, and but I have very limited experience in other ways of publishing. But it will be good to get some input. Maybe later, during Q&A, I'll ask Ramon to give a little bit more input on this, because this is actually a very important point. Sometimes writing local heroes, because it may not be as marketable, it might be hard to look for publishers, but I still think it's a very important feature. A project, writing about local heroes is very important. Something we will set aside for now, but hopefully we'll talk about it at Q&A. And then God is the hero. Ultimately, God is the hero, not that there are heroes of faith, but the object of their faith, which is God. In an autobiography, you could be asking more about the person's perspective or reflection on God's role in the person's life. But really, ultimately, we need to focus on God, how God came through for this person. So it's that person's relationship with God, but ultimately make sure that the focus is on God. So very important point. Yeah. And yeah, so that's basically what I have to share. And I will pause now. I'll just stop share for now. Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll give time for Ramon to maybe say a little bit about publications.
First of all, thank you so much, Jojie. That was really inspiring and equipping us to how to go through the process of writing biographies. I'm sure several people have putting out emojis there. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. And thank you for the interaction with people in the chat of our audience. Thank you. What about publishing? That is very important point to talk to the publisher first. If they're willing, hopefully they're willing to publish your manuscript. Or you can go to the church, or you can go to the denomination and encourage that I have this idea of writing about your worker. What do you think about that? Can we partner together? I'll do the writing. So that will be because you have an organization backing you up for funding and for resources. And then, yeah, lastly would be self-published, but you will do all the work. In self-publishing, you will have to fund the project and take risks. But if you really believe in the subject and the life and the lessons that you will be sharing, God being glorified in the story, and you're willing to invest in it, why not? Yeah.
Just let's just share in my case, the book To the Headhunters, because it's not a very well-known person. What helped OMF Lit push through with publication was that Florentino Santos had a sending church that was quite well off, one of his partner churches, and the partner church actually helped co-publish it with OMF Lit. They pre-bought like 1,000 copies of it, so that helped put the book out there.
That's correct.
Public, so that that could be another way of doing it. Or
yeah,
ebooks,
maybe. Of
maybe.
course, yes, because it's less expensive, but people still like the printed book. And distribution is so important, Joachim said.
Yes. Very.
So a publisher is better. And as you said, if you partner with the church or the organization, that organization can pre-order immediately, and that helps in the distribution and in the selling and marketing as well. Yeah, so there's always the advantages of working with a publisher, with a publishing house.
Right.
Yeah.
Should I answer some of the Q&A that were written out?
Please. Yes.
Okay, so sorry, I'm very conscious of time, but there's some questions. One was asking whether it's better to do first person or third person.
That's
I
Leslie Ko. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't have a preference. But I think if the person is alive and they want to really do it and they want to just talk about their life, then you do a first person, you know. But then if they're already passed, and it can't be autobiographical because then you're reading into their mind, which you can't. So it's better to do a third person, so to speak, in that particular case. Yeah. And then
David. Yeah, wait.
Sorry,
Jojie,
okay.
David Rogers said, working with a publisher increases the reach of the book. Oh, yeah, the distribution, and lend a degree of seriousness and credibility because the name of the publishing house is backing the project. Yeah, thank you, David, for
Yes,
your
thank
point.
you. That's very helpful, but I really, really do hope, because the publisher sometimes need to really also consider the marketability. So if there is a proper strategy in how to promote the book, and there are partners who could push and help with that, say some mission agencies or other mission Christian organizations can help with pushing it, IFES or all these different groups that can help push it, that will really help. So you also need to work on your networks to help push
That's
it,
correct.
or
Yeah.
else it'll be very hard for them to really publish it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, Dorothy Teo has a
Mhm.
question. When writing biographies of heroes of faith, there is a tendency to focus only on the positive aspects or good points about the person. How do we
Mhm.
avoid turning the hero of faith into a saint? Well, they are saints, or avoiding just too good, only good points, good characteristics, and you're not really portraying the real person. So how do you avoid that?
Yeah. To, as I said, the focus is God, but it may be tricky if there are people who have certain things that they don't want to talk about.
Mhm.
That's why I say select your subject carefully. Yeah, if they are willing to be transparent, then I would write about them. If they're not, I don't, because I also don't want hagiography, because we want to again focus on God as the hero, not the person. Yeah. So I'm very careful about that as well. So I ask questions, but I find that like when I did the 16 mini biographies, I had to interview certain church leaders. They were quite open. So I was just thankful I didn't have a hard time with that. But you are right, we need to focus on God, and that was the reason why I was attracted to Mountain Rain, because it was very transparent, I talk about the struggles. So we really need to choose our subject, and if our subjects are more concerned about the reputation, choose another subject, to be honest.
I remember my former pastor saying, maybe it would be better for you to wait until that person dies. Because
uh,
when you're still alive, you might be subject to, of course, temptations, and
yeah,
they succumb to sin, and there you go. I mean, the credibility
yeah,
crumbles.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's
But,
just
but yeah, but even then, you have family to deal with. So if
okay.
family also want to preserve that reputation, that's why you really need to choose your subject wisely. And they're happy uh, to be transparent. And usually those really credible, solid people, they're fine with that, I think.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
really good to choose the subject wisely. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Another was the question of how do you effectively integrate an individual's spiritual beliefs into the biography. I don't think there's a problem of integration if the person walks the talk. It will show. The life will show. When you write about the person, everything will express their belief in their actions.
Mhm.
There's no incongruence. There's no inconsistency between their belief and the way they live their lives, the decisions they make, and how they relate to people. It will all show. It will naturally integrate. That's why it's also good to do research properly, be able to show that very, very clearly. How
Mhm.
do you find heroes of faith? They're everywhere. If you are plugged into Christian communities, wherever you are, certain names will always come up, and then that's where you then try to consider these people. But again, do some light preliminary research before you go in and make a decision. Yeah. And again, it's also about how many would endorse. Endorsement is also very, very important as well, in terms of being able to sell the book. Yeah.
Mhm.
um in the case, our local heroes of faith with whom we aim to have biographical writings are still living. We are never know what kind of, yes, you never know, as what Ramon is saying, you never know what will happen. So I'd say somebody who's very, very established and has a long, long career and has shown consistency all throughout their lives. Yeah. And you see it. then probably those are more solid people that you could work on or focus as a subject. And somebody's asking me about my next project. I'm working with my publisher for another children's book. I really have a heart for really starting them young. So I would really like to work on another biography that's written for children, so preferably a woman. Okay, I need to wants me to answer Trix's question. I think Trix is asking about not being caught up in rabbit holes, yeah? I think if you have enough research to have a main idea, main idea, what is it that you want? That could be your organizing principle that keeps you from running into rabbit holes. If you have, say, for example, Eric Liddell, a man of selfless faith, he really gave everything up for God, right? So I just needed a few examples of that. I don't need to keep belaboring the point. Yeah. So it helps also if you have a how many thousands of words do you need to write, so that keeps you focused. Yeah, how big or how small the book is. My to the Headhunters of Sierra Madre is a small little booklet. It's not a big tome, right? And that actually was good because I had my church member's mom, who's a Chinese. She read through it overnight. In one night, like 2 hours, she finished it. And that's what our aim is. It's so readable that anyone can just pick it up and read it. It doesn't have to be a big book. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I prefer those small books. Then it'll be easy to read and not
Yeah.
too intimidating. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Anyway, I hope I answered that question. You just need to be more disciplined, I think, in your research. Yeah.
Churn gave this useful information, the link to the Christian Dictionary of Christian Biography in Asia.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so thank you for this, Churn. So if our audience could all get to Churn's chat or the link to the Dictionary of
Thank you.
Christian Biography in Asia. Thank you, Churn.
Yeah. I hope
Okay.
I answered the question. Oh, there's some.
You can go ahead. Oh, there's a question from.
Can you
Yeah.
write about a family member who has passed on and they are part of the heroes of faith you have been locally? If so, how do you remain partial with your feelings? Well, if you say that, it means you are self-aware. So that's a good thing. It may be good for you to also get somebody as a reader, as you write the book, get somebody else not related to read with you, to be able to
Mhm.
give insights, because sometimes it's good to have a third person. You could do the writing, and in the Mountain Rain book by J.O. Fraser, it was written by the daughter. So that it still worked out. She based her writing on all of J.O. Fraser's letters to his mom. So that's the bulk of her resource. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. We
Okay.
can continue with the questions from posted before the webinar, as you were
Mhm.
saying.
Mhm.
Jojie, you may
Uh,
have
some of them actually I answered,
it
like how
already.
long
Okay.
is the research time? How long have you allotted for research? I think that's, again, if you work on a timeline and if you work with a publisher on a timeline, and also how what's the expectation from the publishers for the book, that would help you then decide how long the research is. Mine is quite light because it's a small booklet, and it's for children, so the research is quite light. So you have to
Mhm.
think that through as well. Yeah, I think that's it
Yeah.
on my part. Unless there's other
Well,
questions.
thank you for your words of encouragement to
Thank you.
Jojie. Thank you, Dane. Dane said, Dane, uh, from Serbia.
Thank you.
These are very practical and useful principles.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Glad to help.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other
Yeah.
questions?
So Any other question from our audience? I hope this inspired you. Thank you, Jojie, as you encourage them to write specific names on their notebook. Yeah.
Okay,
So
they're asking for my email. I'll just put it down. Okay. There you go.
yeah, Crisanto said his pastor encouraged him to write about his story. So
Excellent.
he's appreciating the principles that you shared.
Thank you.
The titles of
Okay.
Jojie's books, they are at OMF Literature, omflit.com.
And
Martha,
just search my name.
um,
Yeah,
okay. So please search for Jojie's books
yes, omflit.com.
at
It's there, and then you
omflit.com.
just okay. Dean's idea is to blog or write short article stories that can be building blocks. That's a very good idea, actually, to do that. And that makes it easily readable. Less and less people read like thick books lately, so that's very sad. So it's probably good to provide bite-sized mini stories that might be more helpful. I found that I wrote Hudson Taylor and the Great Impossible for kids, right? For 7 to 11 years old. But I found young people reading it, like teenagers, because they prefer, because it has drawings and then it's big letters. They read that. They don't write. They
So
don't like read.
even teenagers appreciate the children's books that you've written.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Jojie, can you please give them your parting words of encouragement? Give our audience, how would you please encourage our audience with your parting words?
Yeah, my encouragement is that you write by faith, always keep God and lean on God for it. And even if you feel like, oh, there's, what is this for? Or it's very little reception. If your writing is focused on God, the object is God, and how God pulled through for this person in his relationship with God. I think if God is honored, that's good enough. But we really need more stories of how God is honored in the lives of local heroes. That's really something I feel very convicted about, and I hope that it will really push more people to be involved in missions, involved in God's work globally, and contribute to the global conversation. So please do write, please do contribute to the global conversations about people of your local heroes. Yeah, so God bless you as you write, and yeah, God be with you as you write as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jojie. We can share your slides with them, right?
Yeah, I could send it.
Send it to me, send the deck to me, so I can also share with everyone the slides that you presented today. Thank you so much, Jojie. You have inspired us. You have encouraged us. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your participation. We appreciate your comments and your questions. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. And please bear with us for some closing announcements. David Rogers mentioned about, oops, wait, I'm sorry. Okay. Do you see my screen? No? Oh, sorry, I just wanted to share the promotion for Lit World. So MAI has a global publishing conference this year. It's going to be in Mexico, in Puebla, Mexico, November 3 to 8. We are encouraging people to come to Lit World. So this is once every 3 years. And you've been to a Lit World, Jojie, right?
Yes, yes.
You
I
were
was
in
encouraged. In Tagaytay.
in Manila, in Tagaytay, Philippines. So Lit World Global Conference is in Puebla, Mexico, November 3 to 8. And for those
there.
of you, yes, so we hope to see many of you come. Actually, the early bird rate, the early booking discount of $100 is only up to the end of the month, but you're always, you're always welcome to register later.
David has a question if the
Yeah.
recording is available
Yes.
on YouTube. Okay.
Yes, I will share the link to the recording within today. I'll email that to you. Okay, watch out for our next webinar next month. It's on podcasting for Christian authors. It's on June 18th, to be led by Dr. Graham Hill. We'll send you the invitation for that. And if you would like to receive our newsletters, go to our website, maiglobal.org, and sign up for our newsletters, digital newsletters called Words for the World. So thank you so much. Jojie, thank you everyone for being here, and we hope to see you again next month. God bless you and keep writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye for now.
Thank you.